Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of FinOps for Finance. Today, I'm joined by Nick Guerra. So Nick, I came across him on LinkedIn. His tagline of unorthodox accountant really caught my eye. Classing myself as somewhat in that category as well. And Nick has kind of moved across from that traditional finance space into the world of FinOps. So I thought he'd be a great person to have on today to kind of explain how he's done it, because I suppose the more examples that people hear about different routes people have taken to break in, something might resonate. So I'll hand it over to you, Nick, to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into FinOps.
All right. Well, thank you, Donald. Thank you for having me here today. It's quite a pleasure. Yeah, as you said, I come from the accounting background or dark past. I started my career, let's say, in a small SME, so very small, not even traditional, conglomerate finance of big companies. Very small company. I was part of the finance admin kind of department. So the good thing about that is I had a great exposure to, how SMEs are. So you do a bit of everything. So yeah, as I was working there in my role there, I really focused mostly on the cost side of things. Have I specialized before then in cost accounting, so that's kind of where my interest lies. And yeah, it's just small company manufacturing, raw materials times that's your cost, very easy. And then one day just by chance, to be honest, I came across this job advert they were recruiting for cost optimization in cloud, of which I've never heard of before. But I was reading the job description and it sounded to me a lot like cost accounting, just that it was applied on the IT world, which resonated to me immediately because I do like tech. I've always been interested in tech. I even considered doing computer science before doing accounting. So yeah, it was like, that sounds interesting. So I went for it. It turned out that was a role at a consulting company. They were just setting up their FinOps offering for customers, kind of evolved from what it was. I've learned later on, of course, where it was the ITM, technology management. And yeah, it kind of adapted what was on-prem costing to the cloud. They were just developing it. So I joined there, stayed with the consulting company for 5 years, I want to say. Um, really getting my head around how IT works, how cloud works, all the buzzwords, all the different providers, the pricing models. It's a minefield. It really is a minefield. And then just over a year ago, I changed jobs again. Now I'm doing FinOps internally for a SaaS company. Um, Day and night difference with the consulting company. Much more of an opportunity for me to really explore the depths of FinOps, learn every day something new, test new things, have that freedom to explore really what we can offer. So yeah, it was still is a long journey from finance, but a journey that I don't what's the word I'm looking for? Jeez, it's been
Or you don't
too.
regret like
Yeah,
making
regret.
that
That's
make
the word I'm
yeah
looking for.
yeah
I
yeah
don't regret taking this journey.
yeah. No, and it's really interesting the fact that I think the cost accounting is a really interesting base to work off. Like you say, it's raw materials and you do something with it and you sell it on, and then whereas in the cloud it's the application and how that's constructed and everything that comes together. Understanding the concepts are the same, it's just not tangible, which makes it tricky.
Yeah, and just the level of detail that you have in IT in general. I mean, cloud in particular, but there are so many components, and each component has so many variables that makes up the price. That is like, well, it's not just even the most sophisticated product that you can manufacture in cloud. You have things that measure by the second, and then one compute have four different price variables, and um, it takes a lot to get your head around that.
Yeah, and it's kind of scoped in as well. Like if you're pricing something, how do you kind of measure it end to end from like the underlying infrastructure, or what about the backups, or what about the front end? Like where do you draw that line? Those are, and like say it's kind of evolving all the time as well, like how businesses work on it. But one really interesting piece with your experience, Nick, was the consulting and the in-house piece. I suppose from the outside, I've kind of done both, but I'm interested in your perspective of I suppose the pros and cons of each, how you found it, because I suppose anyone looking for a job to just see the jobs board and are like, okay, this is what a consulting, this is in-house. What are the main things that people should know? Like, what are the differences that you saw?
So from my experience, and again, this is just one example, one consulting company that I've been with, I found it so the cons of the consulting company to me was it's very dependent on the clients you have and the jobs that are available at the moment. So yes, I did join to do cost optimization for IT, that department, that offering that we have to customers. But of the 5 years, a good chunk of that were shows like, well, you know what? We need to do this migration work and we need someone who can assist as a kind of project management office. Can you do it? Because, well, we are on the bench. You don't have anything to do at the moment and we are paying your salary anyways. So it's a con in the sense of it takes you away from that learning path that you want to undertake. On the other side, it is an advantage in the sense that you have a wide exposure to different components of IT. So the same way I tell you, yeah, it was a pain to do PMO job or pieces of work with the consulting. I tell you, well, it also gave me a lot of exposure to do high level designs, low level designs, understand architecture. How does all the weird training courses that you do for your certifications work in practice? So if you come from no experience, it's good to have that range of exposure. Like it helps you consolidate some of the knowledge. But once you get the point where you say, yeah, you know, I really like this, I want to go deeper. I was getting to the point where I was feeling a bit constrained in terms of, well, consulting company, you will have a statement of work, very well defined. You are hired to do X for the client. Once you start working with the client, because effectively you kind of become part of the client's team, you start seeing a lot of opportunities, right? And you start seeing, oh, this is really interesting, or this is something that we can investigate more and pursue. And the client's all up for it, but they don't want to pay for it. So your boss and your consulting company is like, oh, that's not part of the statement of work, you can do it. So it could be, or it could get a bit repetitive. It's like, well, you were hired to do 10 FinOps dashboards, and you will deliver 10 FinOps dashboards, and that's the end of it. And then the way you grow in the consulting companies, you become more client facing. And to me, it was starting to look a bit more like sales work. I will spend maybe half of the time of my time doing all the statement of work preps, trying to convince a client to expand their work order, etc., which wasn't really what was appealing to me. I wanted to, be a FinOps person. I wanted to explore that field. I wanted to come across things every day and pursue them if I feel like it. And that's why I make the move.
That you make some really interesting points. I like the piece where you said about the statements of work, like the type of work that comes in, it gives you a broad range of exposure. What sparked with me was it's kind of like in medicine, the way they do rotations on different wards. So you try different disciplines and you find out what resonates with you, and then you can kind of really go deep in it. So I think that from that point of view, it's a very valuable place to, especially if you don't know anything about it. You're like, oh, I kind of like observability and I kind of like talking to people and I kind of like numbers, and you'd find your niche within it. So that's one piece that was really interesting. And also, I suppose you mentioned about seeing different customers. we're farming at home, and my lad, my dad always says like if you're in one yard, you just see what goes on in one yard. Whereas if you're going into different companies, you're seeing what's going on in different yards, and you can see, oh, I saw this over here, and I can kind of maybe apply it. It might help you kind of get to the crux of the issue a bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and this is with hindsight, right? I feel like consultancy should be something that you do later on in your career, maybe after you've had two, three, four jobs in the field that you like. Then you can come to consultancy, truly being an expert, and share that knowledge with different clients. Uh, that's how I see it. That was something that I was struggling with again towards the end of my journey in the consultancy. It's like, if I have to be honest, I was being sold as an expert on what I was doing, and my, you know, expertise was just 2 years ish, broken years, because as I was saying, I had different kind of engagements. Um, so there is a bit of sales pitch that goes behind the scenes that I wasn't too keen on.
And I do. It is quite interesting about that piece that you can you feel like more of an expert when you've got the war wounds, when you've kind of spoken with someone who's like, I know it's hard to get engineers to action this because I've been there. I've sat in those rooms. I've had those discussions. I understand the pushback that you're going to get. This is how you might frame it to get there. So that's a really good point. It's um, by kind of having those stories to pull on, it gives you more credibility as well. No, very interesting. And then I suppose the move to the in-house piece, you did mention about the scope is so much, and then you see an opportunity, you're like, geez, I'd love to go after that. I could drive massive value, but it's like that's not within scope. So then in-house, I suppose you have an opportunity to go after everything. What's your experience been like there?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you still have a boss, and there are still priorities that are not dictated by you, and there is a strategic plan for a year. But at the end of the day, if you have a good case to sell to, you know, the C level or whatever your seniors are, they will listen to you. And if it's solid idea and it's a good opportunity, they will want you to go. And especially in our field where we effectively save money, they will encourage you to go and pursue that. And they will help you figure out what work to reallocate or resources to reallocate to make that happen. So you will still need to sell your idea. You will still need some permission, and the scope of work. If it's something that is very easy to do, I just do it, and then I let them know. Oh, by the way, I did this, save money, happy days. But I feel like the priorities are more aligned. So in the company, they want me to progress in my role as a FinOps person, rather than in a consulting. They want to sell more business, and then they do just whatever they're hired for. And it's like, yes, they want you to grow in your career and be an expert, but also they want to sell more, and whatever the client wants, we deliver. I feel like there is a bit more of alignment being in house. That's my experience, at least.
Yeah, because I suppose you're being paid by the company to drive better results. So it's then I suppose the difficulty to play devil's advocate um with the in-house versus consultancy. Like there's low hanging fruit. That's really great. You go in first day and you look at the billing data and you're like, oh, I can save money here, and here. Am I great? And then the difficulty comes when that's your baseline. You've kind of got these things nailed, but that's this year. And they're like, okay, that was really good last year. Coming up for review for next year. So what's the magic trick you're pulling out of the bag now? How do you find that? Whereas consultancy, I suppose it's kind of greenfield to a degree.
Mhm.
Every time they're like, "My God, you're a wizard! This is amazing!" And you're like, "Oh, thanks very much," and I just do the same again. In the next place, how do you find that balance?
Well, again, it goes back to knowing all the cards in your deck, right? I mean, FinOps is a massive field. So, good example, you were saying, yeah, last year I joined, there was a lot of maybe reservations to be purchased. Well, this year I'm focusing more in unit economics. So maybe we won't see cost savings straight away. However, we are improving visibility, we are improving understanding, we are improving, day-to-day metrics that do make the difference in terms of where the next level opportunities are, or at least keep a control of where we are, understanding, well, are we being more efficient? Is our cost going up because we are selling more, or just because we are being more inefficient than last year? So, as I say, now I'm exploring unit economics. Next year, I might explore something different. I don't know, maybe I will expand to other SaaS providers rather than just cloud, and start managing licenses of other vendors. There's always something, and it's a reason why FinOps goes in cycles, right? It's like you start small and you start to expand, and it never ends. You will always need to do reservations, so that never ends because those expire. You will always come across new technologies, so people will want to migrate away from a technology and into something that is more cost efficient or more targeted to what they need. Um, if you are in Slack and you follow the AWS, for example, AWS announcements channel, you will see that AWS launches new things literally every day. And sometimes that means a change in pricing. Sometimes that means a change in family that is more attuned to what you need. So you will need to be that expert and partner up with your engineers and say, hey, I know that you are super comfortable with your current cache engine, but look at this. AWS just announced that they released the new Valky cache engine, and it's 20% cheaper. Oh, and by the way, the migration is seamless, so they claim. They might not be that in line with that kind of analysis or opportunities. They will be more focused on the solution, on the technologies, and might not pay too much attention if something is working fine, and they will have other priorities. So there's always something to do. That's my experience so far.
No, that's quite good. And I suppose you can follow it because like you make a really good point about the scope of FinOps. Like it is so broad, even within cloud. Unit economics is a really good second act, like you say, and you can show the impact of the rate and how the business is performing. And then there's scope, public cloud, ITAM now with the collaboration there as well. So I suppose it's you can create a business case for why you would go after different ones, and then you can focus time there and say, and you're building on the goodwill of the crawl, walk, run of the value that you built before, which is banked, and you're just showing the additional value. And like I said before, you're building that expertise, like because doing the base there, the low hanging fruit, that's relatively easy. But if you can go to the hard stuff, where it becomes more of effort, that's where you're building that expertise to help with future career growth and wherever you might wanna take it.
And expertise within the company, right? Because when you first join, it's one thing to understand that you can purchase commitments and then you will save your baseline on-demand cost, whatever. But then as you grow and you work with engineers, you get to understand the systems, learn what is happening behind the scenes. And then it's a different set of decisions that you can make. As I say, is it a different architecture that you need? Is it a different solution? So my experience again is when you first enter, it's like, oh, this is, I don't know what I'm looking at here. Let's
Yeah.
just go to the basics. Uh, and then you learn as you, with any job, you learn the ins and outs of specifically what's happening in the company that you're part of.
No, really, really interesting. And then I suppose to get that far, to get in the roles in the consultancy and the in-house piece, there's obviously some element of crossover of skills from kind of being a finance professional to moving across in terms of, I suppose, the soft skills that you might have from the finance background. How does that resonate? Or what skills are you drawing on there that you're the foundation of that you feel you're pulling on in the role of FinOps?
So for soft skills, I think that the most important one would be people skills, because we come from finance, and finance can be a bit isolated. I mean, finance are facts, right? You know how much money goes in, you know how much money goes out, you know what the rules are to create the statement. but you still need to present things to other people in the organization. You still need to liaise with people to set budget. So that bit of interconnection, talking to people, pays off massively once you go into FinOps, because, and this comes again with another soft skill, which is being humble. You need to be ready. If you're going into FinOps, you need to be ready to accept that you won't have all the answers, that you cannot rely on yourself to do all the work, and you will need you will have a huge dependency on engineers and their knowledge of their products. So people skill, being humble, being open to learn every day, to ask questions, to accept that you won't just be able to have all the facts and do or be able to do a precise analysis. Starting to be a bit more comfortable with good approximations, good trends, good ballpark figures, 80-20 Pareto rules. That was a bridge to cross. But yeah, so I would say, yeah, people skills, it's going to be crucial if you are going to move into FinOps. Um,
Yeah, I really like the point you made as well about the need to let go of the precision piece, because I suppose I was an accountant for 10 years before moving across to this, and a couple of roles I had, I was reporting someone who'd want it reconciled down to the dollar.
mhm.
And then I worked for other bosses where they're like, it's within 95%. It's not material. There's no need to, this isn't the hill on which we perish. So it depends. And I think in finance, a lot of people fall within one of those two categories. And if you're the person that needs it to reconcile to the dollar, FinOps ain't for you.
Yeah,
Because as you said, you're never going to, even forecasting, budgeting, everything like that. There is so many variables. You're never going to get there and you'll drive yourself insane. Whereas if you're happy with an approximation based on assumptions and based on a methodology that you can stand over and that you're happy to tweak, you make a very good point about being humble as well. Like it's you can't go in thinking you're not the expert here. You're
yeah,
the numbers person initially, and you'll build that trust as you understand the architecture and the infrastructure more. But to begin with, you're very much the apprentice with a calculator, and who might have done some courses and got a bit of an understanding. But yeah, the reliance, that's really, really important.
I agree. Well, doing any more?
And then I suppose so that's the soft skill, which is the key part. In terms of the hard skills, then the kind of hands-on keyboards kind of thing. What transferable skills would you see there, moving
So
across?
I have a feeling of an odd one here. I think my opinion is like, well, something that really helped me a lot going into IT in general is being able to extrapolate very day-to-day IT tools that you might use into the larger IT scope. And let me explain, because it sounds very weird, I know. But accountants, I'm sure that you, everyone who's listening to us, they are they've spent lots of hours on Excel, right? Like you have spreadsheets day in, day out. If you are using spreadsheets, you will have used formulas, if functions, maybe even macros. You might have coded macro, um, right, left, text manipulation within the Excel. Whether we know it or not, once you learn a little bit about how developers work and how code works, you will see that the high level things of that is very similar. I mean, what you are doing with Excel is it's kind of coding. So being able to understand what if functions are, what text manipulation strings are, um, being able to understand how to work out the data if you were using things like Power BI or Power Query, even if you had Access, Microsoft Access as a database, and you know how relationship works in Access to do different tables, different views, things that really I've learned at school. I've only used Microsoft Access at school, and then I remember very, very good somewhere here, the back of my mind, I had like, oh yeah, primary key and one-to-many relationships. Being able to take those concepts and extrapolate to real life industry level SaaS applications and how they are built, to me was really helpful. Of course, was nowhere near the full extent of IT, but at least gave me some basic understanding of, if they tell me a database and they tell me about the relationship, yeah, I know roughly what they mean. If I need to, again, back finance, I was using Power Query. If they tell me about an ETL job, how they bring data from one side and then they split the columns and they add and enrich and whatever. Again, I might not be able to do it myself, but I understand the concept. I see what you're trying to tell me when I'm talking to an engineer. So being able to extrapolate those, what seems, everyday IT skills to the larger scope, invaluable to me.
So you're kind of understanding what's going on under the hood by what, like by applications that you've used yourself, like, and how that underlying infrastructure, like when you do Netflix and you're like, oh, it's slow because is it because the data center near me is the caching, is it kind of, uh, yeah, I suppose, yeah. Once you start thinking about IT in terms of day to day and your lived experience, I suppose that does.
Yeah. I know it's a difficult one. I mean, of course, there are other hard skills, accounting, accruals, reporting. They are all important. You will need them in FinOps. But to me, I think that what accelerated my learning the most was being able to make those relationships of say, okay, yeah, I don't know how to write something on Python, but if you're telling me that the process works with an if function and a loop, okay, I know what you mean. I mean, yeah, I can do it myself, but I know what an if kind of a statement is.
No, no, very, very, very good. And then I suppose linking to that, and apologies, this wasn't a question I kind of sent in, but I know we spoke about it when we connected first, was around you made very interesting points around certifications and stuff like that. I know you've got a
Oh
bundle of
yeah.
them. I'd just be interested in your thoughts on the ones to maybe have a go at, not worth doing, or what's your thoughts on it?
I have very strong opinions about certifications.
Yeah.
Um,
What do I want to hear? Like, there's no point in it being an echo chamber with everyone saying, "Yeah, get these five and you're sorted."
yeah.
Yeah, we want to see the ink to the ink.
So I think certifications, they serve different purposes, right? So for the cloud provider, it kind of narrows your view to only learn their tools and why they are great. And if you take any of their free training materials towards the certification, my impression, the feel I got was like, this is more of a sales pitch than a training course. They are telling me why their compute is so great that you need to use it. They are not telling me what the compute is. They are not telling me why they solve the problem. They are not telling me how to interact with other services or how to build an architecture. They're just telling me the components that they have available and what they are great. For someone who comes from IT, might be enough to break into a cloud provider if you have no exposure to it before. Say, okay, I know the words, I know where to look for things that I already know what they are. I found it very difficult to use those courses to actually learn what architecture looks like or what each component does or doesn't do. Um, so that's one thing. The other thing is, as you do certifications and put your badges on LinkedIn, and this is like the same as learning a new language, people start to assume that you are an expert on whatever your badge says. When in reality, or at least for me, you might have spent a few weeks learning by memory, trying to understand maybe a thing or two, but mostly by memory. Sit there, pass an exam, got the badge, happy days. So people will think that you know more than you actually knew. Maybe you will think that you know more than you actually do. And they will start talking to you in technical terms that it will take you 3 seconds to be lost. Again, my experience. Maybe some other people make the most out of those certifications. So I would say be careful, be very wise on what you choose. I think even if it's not a certification, it's more valuable to learn the concepts first. So rather than go and get a solution architect from Azure, GCP, wherever, go and find the Coursera course, which explains what IT architecture is. I have a book here right above my head, IT Architecture for Dummies. It's a book. Learn the basics first, learn what architecture is, learn about the tiers in IT. What is a two tiers architecture? What is a three tiers? What is coupling, decoupling, asynchronous communication? Learn the concepts. Then you can go do the certifications and say, okay, all these concepts, these are the tools in AWS to achieve what we are doing. And if I switch to GCP, then you are just learning names of services. The way things work are the same. What the name, the service is called is irrelevant. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost the cost accounting piece and the bomb. It's like what it or first principles, like you're breaking it down to the very base level, and then you've just got variety of names, and then as you're learning the services, if you do the certifications, you're like, okay, so that maps to this. So in terms of architecture, this is how it finds through. That's really. And it's great to have an alternative opinion as well. And I suppose the balance is someone might be like, geez, that's great. If I do the certification, people think I know more than I do. I'll do the certification, and but then you get found out. And I suppose
Yeah.
if in an interview or something like that, if someone like say scratches a little deeper, it's kind of it'd be good to draw on some additional knowledge where you can understand how they hang together. Because like I say, knowing the services and what they do individually is great, but how they hang together to build an application is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah. And then yeah, there are a few things that you will need to learn for sure. But you need to start somewhere. If you are lucky enough to have the opportunity to get into the FinOps field before doing all the certifications, maybe because there's an internal vacancy or something, that learning on the job, it's probably a faster track than trying to break into a job by doing certifications and then hoping that you get enough knowledge um, out of a few slides that you might read.
Yeah, because I suppose by learning on the job, it's targeted and it's applicable straight away, as opposed to learning all the services, all the architecture, and only a small portion of it might be applicable to a particular job. No, really good point. And I suppose that ties in then with what advice would you have for someone that's looking to start their journey? So they're either early stage accountant or they're just finishing accounting in college, or they've gone in doing their certificate or their certifications in their brain, their professional exams, and they're like, actually, this stuff is kind of rubbish. I want to do something else. How would you? What would your advice be to them to try and move across?
I think something that will help people massively coming into FinOps, and this is a hard skill, learn SQL. If you haven't had a chance first, SQL is going to be your bread and butter because that's the best way, in my opinion, to go and explore anything that is bill related. I mean, the bill, if you're thinking you're going to do it in Excel, you won't. Let me tell you now, you won't be able to explore an AWS or GCP or whichever bill on Excel. Get that out of your mind. So SQL, it's needed. Then some BI, business intelligence tools, whether it's Power BI, Tableau, uh, Google Looker, whichever. Again, being able to visualize the data because you might export the data with SQL, but you still need to work it out. You still need to visualize it. You need to do your analysis. We These days we can't avoid AI. I mean, AI both for learning, for accelerating your daily operations, would play a big part on your job, hopefully, or should. So be comfortable with writing right prompts to get the right output, or being able to interact with an AI just to learn I mean, AI is a great tool if you are coming from a non-technical background and you want to understand what compute database or whatever it is, you can literally tell the tool, explain it in dumb terms to me, and
Yeah.
it will do
Yes.
a good enough job. Um, and then, yeah, just be ready to deal with volumes and speed of data that you've never dealt with before. It's a
And
lot
the
of
pace of
information.
change, like the pace of change.
The pace of change, every day there will be a new service, every day there will be a new opportunity. Everything happens too fast. Yeah, and everything happens in big volumes. So again, back to what we were saying before, you're going to work with good enough information, good estimates, good methods. It's a different world. Your accounting, if your cost accounting, your accounting will be helpful, but you will need to be ready to change your mindset. Again, back to being humble, back to being collaborating. You are going to be a supporter. You're going to be um, someone external, or not external in the sense that you come from somewhere else, but you will. You're not in the driver's seat. You're going to support engineers with their data. You're going to give them the right information they need to make the best technology decisions. You're not going to make those decisions, but you can enable them. You're going to be an enabler. You are going to identify opportunity. You are there to bring things to the light rather than you know do a job end to end. It's not just you anymore. It's a lot of moving parts.
I suppose it goes down to the base tenants, like I suppose the accounting standards and everything like that. They're around a long time. Whereas I suppose the FinOps Foundation is relatively recent, and it's the scope and the principles are evolving every single year, so it's changing all the time, and that I suppose that reflects the mindset requirement as well, fixed versus growth. You have to be comfortable not knowing, and I suppose that's also the opportunity as well. The fact that it is all changing. It's not like you've missed a boat that's like, oh, someone's been doing this for 10 years. I couldn't possibly start now. It's like, well, 10 years ago was entirely different. It's very different now. It'll be very different in 10 years' time. So there's always room for people to jump in if they've got that willingness to grow and evolve and adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant, Nick. That's excellent. Thanks so much for your time. Really love your opinions and your take, and your experience was brilliant. If people want to get in touch, what's the best way that they can find you?
Probably LinkedIn. I started the blog not long ago. There's literally 2 articles at the moment, but they will be posted on my LinkedIn as well. So yeah, if you can find me on LinkedIn, I'm always up for a chat. Reach out. Happy to help where I can.
Great, that's brilliant. I'll put the link in the notes, and yeah, I'll share that out. Thanks again. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Ella. It was a pleasure to be here.